Today is a nice, chill, Lord of the Rings, Middle-earth strategy battle game kind of day. And to start with, let's throw some sketchy brushstrokes on Grima. So, unlike Saruman, I'm actually going to start on the skin of Mr. Wormtongue here. And I want him to look really sickly and dark, like his skin is too thin. So I'm going to take some of that same tan flesh, mix in a little bit of the darkness, and then brighten it up by mixing in some ice yellow. And hopefully all that translates into a sickly, really pale white, but kind of a little bit of blue pulling through flesh tone. Now, generally speaking, Grima here just looks like he's wearing a lot of black, but looking at some of the set photos from the shooting of The Lord of the Rings, there's actually kind of a lot of extra color in there, like a lot of blues in the outer robe, more of a brown kind of fur, and some brown underneath in that inner robes. And since we're dealing with such a small scale at 28 millimeters, I'm gonna really go overboard on that color to some degree. So this inner robe, I'm going to mix in some of that same darkness into Banshee Brown. And then once again, use some ice yellow to sort of brighten it up, just over a couple of sketchy, scratchy layers. And similarly, whatever he's got on his arms, that thick, woven, lacy kind of business, they're not just black. And to the credit of the GW painters, they did a pretty good job of this in their box art. So I think I'm just gonna dab in a little bit of this sunburst ochre in between all of these lacy bits. And then go back over top of all of that lacy business with black, and then mix in a little bit of ivory white into the black to just add a little bit of highlight to that. Make that fabric or whatever it is look like it's got a little bit of shimmer. Now for that fur trim around his neck and head, I want to go for something that's kind of a rich brown. So I think just looking at the colors that are on the palette, going to mix in some of that sunburst ochre into the black. Just adding more and more of that sunburst ochre to sort of subtly add some highlights. Now that outer robe is kind of the easiest part here. Just using the darkness that's already underpainted there, and adding a little bit, and then adding a little bit of ivory white, and just adding some sketchy, scratchy lines. Just add some subtle highlights and kind of make it look like it's a more coarsely woven fabric. Some black and some subtle gray to the hair. And we have a finished Grima worm tongue. Okay, I think I might call it there for today, but as a quick aside, I really want to know what kind of brushes you're using. I've pretty well been using these Rosemary & Co. Series 33 Kolinsky Sable brushes since I started. And while I generally like them, I find that they've been lasting a shorter and shorter amount of time. So I tried using the Vallejo Pro Modeler Sable brushes, which are okay, but they're not always necessarily easy for me to get, and I don't love what that company has been doing. And even more so, I don't know, I'm just increasingly feeling like as hobbyists we should maybe be using more synthetic brushes and less animal hair. I don't know, it's just a thing that's been going on in my head. Anyways, I've been looking for nicer synthetic brushes, and these Rosemary & Co. pointed red dot synthetics are great, but they're not always easy for me to get. So whatever, that's a lot of rambling. Let me know what synthetic brushes you've used that you like. So rambling brush talk aside, we've got a completed Grima. And I think he looks pretty great. Definitely more sinister maybe than I intended with how pale that skin color is, but I don't know. I'm pretty happy with him. Next up, you know I gotta paint up some good guys so that I can play games with people even if they don't necessarily have an army yet. Anyways though, thank you so much for watching. You are awesome. And maybe I'll see you tomorrow.